Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Reworked and Vector webinar. My name is Olivia Maeda, and I'm here today to help answer any general or technical questions that you may have. But before we get started, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Transforming Workflows, AI Apps, and AI Agents in Action. Here is today's timing breakdown. These numbers are just a rough estimate, so please don't hold us to these. At any point during today's webinar, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to submit those using the Q&A tab on the right side of your screen. You can chat with your fellow attendees by clicking the public chat that is also on the right side of your screen. We also have a resource made available to you on the Docs tab. Here's a little bit about us here at Reworked. We were founded in 2020 and covered the primary topics that you see here on this slide. You can also read our great content and register for any upcoming conferences and webinars, all by visiting www.rework.co. And I also just want to thank today's sponsor, Glean, for making today's webinar possible. Glean is the work AI platform that connects, secures, and understands all of your company's knowledge to bring you the answers you need. With its foundation in powerful enterprise search, Glean empowers users to quickly generate highly personalized answers and build custom generative AI agents, apps, agents, and assistants that automate work, all in one centralized AI platform. You can learn more at www.glean.com. And now it is time for me to introduce today's speakers. Today I'm joined with Mark Christianson, the Senior Manager, Digital Workplace and AI Strategy at ezCater, and Kat Crichton, sorry if I just butchered your last name, the Customer Success Manager at Glean. And I will pass it over to you, Kat.
Thanks, Olivia. It's Kat Crichton.
Oh,
So I'm a
so
customer.
close.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm a customer success manager at Glean, and I'm very excited to talk with Mark about AI apps and agents. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about what ezCater does and your role there?
Yeah, so I, as you said, Senior Manager of Digital Workplace and AI Strategy. And ezCater, if you're not familiar with us, is the #1 food tech platform for workplaces. We make it easy for organizations to manage food needs for your office, and you can order from over 100,000 restaurants nationwide. My role is to focus on leveraging technology and AI to enhance productivity and collaboration across the organization.
Excellent. Can you talk a bit more about how ezCater first came to using AI in the workplace? Like what, if something prompted it, or what your thought process was there?
Yeah, along with everybody else, I think in early 2023, really things took off, and ezCater began evaluating AI-powered tools in order to drive the customer experience. And so we look at it in 4 unique audiences: workplaces, restaurants, delivery partners, and our own employees. And we started a process where we're either trialing or adopting. And it's really just about, we constantly assess the value of what that AI is for those audiences. And what we've done is we equipped our customer service team with AI-enabled tools that help the agents in real time as they handle customer inquiries. And that made the interactions more efficient. And then from there, we really got into expanding the AI experience to support the entire workforce and looking at productivity and ways to help the employees with their regular day-to-day tasks. And basically, we just meet with the different functions to understand the common needs, to figure out what are they trying to get done. It's not really about those big things, but it's the small, tiny bite-sized elements that we're going after. And that kind of just snowballed. And as you've seen in the market, there's huge change. And so we've just decided that we really need to just keep trying things and seeing what works and what doesn't, learn the lessons, and move from there.
Yes, very iterative process I've noticed with my customers as well. Would love to know from the audience here kind of where they're at with AI. So I know we have a poll we can send out. and where folks are at on their AI journey. Personal.
I suspect there's going to be a lot of, I think a lot of people are personally driving with it. I think a lot of businesses at this point are kind of struggling. There's a lot of try, and there's a lot of efforts there. Just kind of, we'll see what this particular audience, I would think, would probably be a little more engaged on a professional side, but it'll be interesting to see. Watching some of the stuff. Creative advertising. I think the creative stuff is good. That's an interesting piece. Generative AI is gonna, in business, at least what we're seeing, Kat, I'll just kind of jump in on those, is just to kind of look at it and say, can we do the mundane so that we can let the humans be creative? Here at ezCater, really the focus is how do we augment our employees to do the white glove thing, to do the creative human thing, so we don't lose that personal nature, and we made a responsibility to say that that's the focus, is like, how do we make our employees better, not replace our employees with AI, increase the service. And so we were going after that fear, uncertainty, and doubt issues.
Yeah, that's Glean's philosophy too, is work AI. So an agent working alongside you, not replacing you. So another poll here, what's your biggest AI productivity challenge today? Since it does sound like a lot of you are incorporating this into your business as well. I'm curious to see some of these results. Right information.
Prompt writing is talking to an AI, I think, is the base level skill everybody should be working on. It's like a programming language, but honestly, it's just articulation. And understanding how to talk to an AI, I think, is for those people that start to build that muscle, because it is just a muscle, really, it's just articulation. But if you figure out how to do that, I think that's where you're going to succeed. And that's where you should be. If you're in charge of this for your organization, prompt engineering, prompt skill building is probably one of the critical skills. And it's one of the ones we've said here at ezCater we will be developing, and we're continuing to develop with all of our employees, because no matter what generative AI you decide to use, that is a basic level skill.
Yeah, totally agreed. I just did a webinar a couple of weeks ago with a recruiter too, and that's come up consistently in her recruiting is AI literacy, and that's been a constant topic, I think, in like the technology circles and the CIOs and in their networking circles, is like AI literacy and how to do that. So I'm curious, from kind of that general standpoint, in your rolling this out internally, has that fundamentally changed how people operate as you're rolling AI out, or have you noticed any transformations from incorporating AI into your work?
Yeah, I think there's a process where obviously the change aspect of things, since AI is typically seen as an additive, like I can do the work, the AI can help you do the work. The people have a choice. They can choose to do the things they know, or they can augment what they do with AI. And so we do have a should I or not. And then the other thing is building the muscle of kind of looking at it and saying, starting to be critical thinking. How do you deal with, I'm looking at the task in front of me. Do you start to open it up and say, should I ask myself, can this task be easier with AI? Because that's one of the things going after it. And so we're looking at the automating those repetitive tasks, doing data-driven insights, decision-making. What can we do that we can say, hey, just get some of the mundane out of there, writing reports. And so we're seeing different things. It's making people think beyond the, I'm just summarizing a document. It really starts to open things up, and we put things in front of people, and we're now starting to see that snowball. Like, oh, if it can do this, can it do this? And I laugh because they go from 0 to 100 very quickly. one minute they're asking for the summary, the next minute they're asking for something that we haven't got data yet for. So it's like the light bulb moment happens, they get excited, and then it's driving. So it's really cool to kind of see how the teams are evolving as that fear factor kind of goes away. AI is not the Terminator; it's not going to take over.
Yes, clearly from using it, I have noticed that's not going to happen, at least anytime soon. Do you have specific examples of AI tools you've deployed at ezCater that have improved productivity? Could you give us some of those examples?
Yeah. One of the things that we did early on with our customer services, we used a product called Level AI and got them to do where it's like the customer service people would be speaking with someone and it would be pulling up information that could be useful to the agent to support that. And then really the big one, obviously, the reason why we're here is Glean and Glean Assistant in particular. We had originally looked for a search engine, and that was what was kind of was driving the process. And in 2023, it turned out where AI was really hot, and it turned out that Glean had the assistant piece, and that's what turned that focus and said, how can we combine those two efforts and look into it? So Glean has been super effective, and we've been really trying to get our users on it. Last count, we are 48% of our workforce, so nearly half of our workforce is using Glean Assistant on a regular basis.
That's very exciting. I'm biased, but that's very exciting. So looking at Glean specifically, Glean has a tool, right, a feature called Glean Apps, which essentially is what are AI agents or bots. Can you explain how you kind of considered the role of these apps or agents inside of your organization?
Yeah, so it's an interesting challenge. At first, I wasn't excited about getting into apps because I didn't know how to package that. Users were already not in the habit of going to the assistant. So how do you go from just go to the assistant to, in some situations, go to an app? And so we've started to kind of change the way we think about apps as subject matter experts. It's a good mental model. And we're building ones like pay and benefits and IT help desk. And so customer service, like ones that have a very focused skill set and an output that is particular. And the way we're looking at it is saying, now that Glean has added triggers, we don't have to drive them to the app. We just say, we can build those in the background. We say those subject matters expert exist, and the assistant can figure out when to pull in that subject matter expert. You asked something about your W-2 or they're all tax time here in the United States. So if you ask that type of question, the pay and benefits can recognize that that was the question, see the trigger, grab that information, and then format that result based on the best evidence, not the generalist answer that might come from Slack posts or comments or aged out things. And so we've really just tried to get the users excited about just getting the muscle built on going to the assistant. And then the subject matter experts, the apps, it's about how do we superpower some of the questions and then work behind the scenes to work with the teams to say, create an app that can focus on those that are very poignant, specific needs of the users.
Nice. Yeah. And speaking of, I think I want to share with the group kind of this app feature in action, since this is apps and AI in action, to give a visual of what Mark's talking about. So I also created an SME bot. That is how I think of these AI apps, or I think of them as subject matter experts. And in doing that, what I did was, to create this application inside Glean, it's very easy. Glean already connects to all of your company data. That's kind of our enterprise search foundation. And I can, through that, create an app and point it to the documentation that I already have in my environment here. And as Mark mentioned, You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to code. You can really create these pretty easily and deploy these in a few different locations, such as the chat. And then you can also give it some sort of triggering capabilities to know when to invoke this app. So my Glean expert here, when I talk with it, I can go to it directly and ask it questions about Glean. And it's going to explain to me what these features are. It's going to look through the documentation I already told it to look at and give me a rundown. And then I can also, if I'm just in a basic chat, I'm going to invoke another app through a question. Is our PTO policy? So I know this one triggers our HR assistant bot. So that's our HR subject matter expert. Smart routing, triggering goes by a few different words, but very easy to direct people to one place and get these agents, these bots deployed there and in answering your user questions.
And I think that's a critical piece. That triggering is one of the big things. Right now, the biggest thing is change. The technology is changing super, super fast. And so the users it's kind of a whirlwind. How do we keep the users, like if you show them, go to this interface, then they can build that habit, go to that interface. Don't worry about those other locations. And later on, they can start to segregate themselves and go there as you work through that, the different levels. But for now, consistency is one of the things. Like really just say, hey, just go here and use this. If you could do that, then you can say, hey, those answers are going to get better as we add more apps, as those get, as that guided elements happen. And for the users, they'll just see an incremental increase in the quality of the response. So what we'll want to do is say, let that drive. Like ask a question, someone says, never answers the questions for HR. Go to your HR team and say, hey, let's put together an app so that we can make these tighter. And then the next time someone asks a question, it's going to come in the way that you want it, with the right information, with the right tone, and then direct them to the appropriate resources. Because that's another great thing about apps, is to be able to say, always end with promoting. If it's pay and benefits, go talk to the HR people here. So you can have that same tone that your company culture has.
Exactly. We've kind of talked about some of these questions, but I wanted to go through them in a bit more detail. So as you're deploying these apps or agents versus other AI, how did you think about these two, I guess initially, and how are you thinking about them now and as you roll this out more?
Yeah, initially, like I said, I thought it was, if you remember a few years ago, we had the bots. Bots were everywhere, right? They're very specific. I could order a Domino's pizza, right? But don't ask it anything that was outside of its scope. It would not know how to do that. And I had joked years ago that what you ended up needing was a concierge bot. You needed I want to go to this restaurant. I want to go to this theater. And so you need a bot that actually is the concierge. It calls the restaurant, calls the taxi, the rideshare service, and the theater, to make sure that you can time all that together, right? Otherwise, the experience is useless. So I was a little afraid initially that apps were going to be one-trick ponies, very focused, and they weren't going to be able to, how are we going to sew those together? And I think we were starting to see how that works out. Those are the types of things that I think are developing, where we're looking at and saying, look, let's create the subject matter experts, and they will be kind of converging. There will be a way to sew those things together as we develop. And so those are the types of, as we give apps more capabilities, then it'll be like generative AI will be, I'm having a chat. Other ones like the agents are more of the apps and agents are more of the, I need tasks done. So here's specific things and then what they can execute. And so those are two critical ways I think we're looking at those interfaces.
Very interesting. And so looking at it from those, would they be deployed in your daily operations? Have you already deployed any specific ones into your daily operations and seen benefits?
Yeah, so IT service desk, of course, a pretty easy one, where somebody says, "Hey, drop my laptop in a muddy puddle. I need a new one." Things that you can get that first level out of the way, or if it happens at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're a night owl, they can get answers. So that was a big one. Like I said, pay and benefits, as you have your annual enrollment, people asking hundreds of questions, how do you go and you chum through that. So those are some of the ways that we're kind of dealing with that. Now we're working on trying to get it closer to the user, so that it is zero distance is a big one for us. And so we are super engaged in trying to get the Slack integration as a Slack user. So us having the Glean Slack integration to just make it so that it's just very close to where the users are, so they don't have that mental jump. I have to open a browser, I have to go to this other thing, and just build the skill set and the habit, because those are the two critical things. Like I said, is skill building on prompt engineering, and then the critical thinking of saying, I'm doing something, I'm writing a report. Could this be easier? And what do I need to do to make that easier? So those are the things, so people don't realize it or kind of go back to old habits and remember later, oh, I could have done that, and make that kind of a critical habit.
Yeah. And I see Johnny was curious about getting data ready for AI. I know Glean has a philosophy on this. I'm curious if you do, and how you approached it at ezCater.
Yeah, knowledge management used to be, I kind of joked, it was the side hustle librarian at the company. I think we're about to see if you've got anybody getting into the market and they're looking for an entry point. I would say knowledge management is about to get real important really quick. Where in the old day you could kind of go through and say search engines are here, here's all the results, and you would decide for yourself what might be stale or not. But the AI is just going to grab different pieces of information, is going to lie to you effectively if the data is not there. So getting data in order, we went through quite a process to go through and say, the quality of the data in, garbage in, garbage out. So go back to those groups and say, hey, how do you clean up this data? How do you format things? How do we look at putting things in Glean answers and collections so that they would get surfaced ahead of older data? And so there is a pretty significant overhead to that, and I think that's going to apply not only in search engine based or RAG models, but also as we develop, like bringing in Snowflake data, like raw data. It's going to be, what does that data look like? How can it be interpreted, and how does it know? The AI can help you by connecting the dots.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you'll need two approaches, or companies will need two approaches, like the structured data approach and then that knowledge management unstructured data side, which I would say Glean is actually very good with the unstructured side, and because our search is an AI powered search too. So we do run machine learning pipelines on that company information and are pretty good at retrieving it and being the retrieval engine for the right stuff. But companies, especially older companies, have a lot of probably not super relevant stuff anymore that they kind of need to retire, archive somehow.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to think critically about your data, because you're not going to want something to surface that is old. And there's that old habit. I don't want to delete anything. So you're going to have to go through there. And I think it's also driving some of the effort at Glean to, how do we prioritize that stuff? How do we get the system to understand the same thing a user does, where like that's 5 years old and maybe low, or we hit a threshold. One of the things I've been working on is trying to get it to say where its confidence score is, like, oh, if it's less than this, maybe, note to the user that some of the sources might be older. Give them the benefit of the doubt until we get to the assurity. I think you have to kind of be very careful about AI being very emphatic about this is the answer. Not always the case.
Definitely. And the thing with AI too is it's non-deterministic. So it's going to provide different answers, different outputs based off of, if you change one or two words or you change your prompt engineering, right? That's why that might be so key of a skill set going forward, is to know how to get the output you really want through your engineering, through your query.
Google had an excellent, I will credit them, they had an excellent survey that they had looked at for their people, and said 5% of the users who had good results from an AI used 21 words or better on a prompt. But the average for the other people was low on 9. And so going back to what I was saying, articulation became our CTO really came out and in all hands for the whole company said, as a company, we feel a critical skill to drive AI is prompt engineering, how to talk to. The funny part is that in my view, you're going to become a better manager because you're going to be managing AI. AI is going to be, doing
One of your employees.
Well, and my joke is AI is amazing intern. Okay, so but you have to look at it the same way, right? It's enthusiastic and it's a generalist and it can find all the information, but it's only as good as you are as a good a manager. 80% is 100%. You're not going to get everything. But what you want to do is you want to be articulate, because the better you articulate your need, just like an intern or someone who works for you, the better the results you're going to get. And so how do we teach that skill from 30 years of search engine keywords, short, you get what I mean, or having context?
Yeah.
We have to give this other context in there. And so that's a critical skill. It's one of the reasons why that's where we're focused on it, because we think if we can do that while AI is coming in, we can build the habit, we can do the base skill, then anything we employ with that kind of system is immediately effectual with the users.
So we're training AI, but also AI is training us, right, on how to query it in a sense.
Well, think about it. We spent the greater part of the last 30 years teaching humans how to speak like a computer because they couldn't do it the other way. And now we've said, now we've taught the computer how to speak like a human, and now we have to retrain the humans to talk to the computers in human ways. So we're kind of going and saying, before, get rid of all the words because it would confuse the computer. Now we're like, give it more words. So we're going to be back in that retraining thing. So it is something that's going to be going through. I've seen it every time. Glean has an awesome system for upvotes and downvotes. When the downvotes come in, I'm just as happy as when they get an upvote. Why? Because most of the time they're almost there. What I find 9 times out of 10, a downvote is because they either just didn't articulate or they just were a little bit. I tweak one little thing, I go back to them and say, hey, try this out. And they'll usually say, oh, this is perfect, great. So training the users and just trying to get them that one little extra play, that's the important, if you want to drive AI in your company, is kind of getting down there with the users and say, this is how you use it. It's not going to solve all your problems unless you know how to articulate.
Very, very interesting. I'm going to take that 21 word average to my customers. What specific features of Glean apps are most utilized by your team? Have you kind of delved into this, and how do they enhance workflows?
Yeah, for apps, I really like, and I think it's just at the start, some of the actions that we're starting to get. One of the ones that kind of, I'll use the word delight, it just kind of gets the user's interest. If you say, hey, to the help desk, you say, hey, I have this problem. And then it says, oh, do you want to create a ticket? And it generates the draft of the email for you. So we've set it up so that it grabs your information. It even will grab your manager and CC them in the ticket, and and fill it out. And we went from most tickets being very like one line, like I need a new laptop, or to it querying them for a business case on say access, and then fleshing that out and getting a better ticket. So when help desk gets that, there's a little more enriched solution, and we get better tickets. Better tickets, again, articulation, even with the humans, means better result. And so this giving us a more rounded experience. The ticket is better. The user didn't have to spend the time articulating all that kind of stuff. We kind of infer a lot of that. And that's where the time saving is, and where we get into the whole return on time invested discussion.
Yeah, because I mean, as a user, I don't love inputting that in all the time. And
well, where is your time spent effectively? And that's kind of what we're looking at, is what is efficient use of time. And I tell people all the time, you can rub two sticks together to make fire. You can use a lighter. You can use either one. If you want the process today because you got all the time in the world and you're interested in rubbing sticks together, awesome, rub sticks together. If somebody's screaming and they're tired, and they need heat in the room, you're going to use a lighter. So where is the AI appropriate to use? And so those are the types of situations we're looking at for our customers in particular. As we look at customer facing things like AI, we don't want to replace our customer service people. That's our white glove service, right? We want you to feel that, like, in an anxiety ridden time, that's where we want to help you. But if we can just get you the answer super fast, like where's my food, and you could, the first thing, it recognizes the phone you're on. It just says, your stuff's 10 minutes down the road. Then before the phone could ring and you could give your order number to a human, we could give you the answer. That is where we start to look at it and say, that's just what you wanted. And so we gave that to you really fast. Now, if you want all the other stuff, yeah, cool, stay on the line. We'll continue to work with the human. But we think that there's an area here for helping the customer and realizing when AI is an assistive, and that helps get what we need to on our side and on their side.
Really like that approach. Did you make any customizations maybe with Glean's actions? We have like an action pack. We have APIs because we are an AI platform that you can utilize. Not yet.
Okay. We're working on it. It's we're moving over. We're doing some stuff with Salesforce, and then there's a lot of things in flight. And like I said, this technology is changing so quickly. I think everyone appreciates the fact that there's an SDK and an API engagement, and we're starting to see some of the requests come in. Having that capability is definitely a bonus. I think right now we have plenty of capabilities, and as we're working along the journey, it just means that we're not going to quickly hit a wall. And so those are the types of things that we're looking at, is saying, hey, it's available. And as our engineering team gets together, we can say, how do we integrate some of those into some of the day-to-day workflows, or into some of the applications internally.
And that's going to bring us to our next topic, like the future of AI. But before we jump into that, I wanted to make sure there weren't any outstanding questions on what we've talked about so far from the group. So please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A or the chat. And I will move into the future conversation. So Mark, how are you thinking about or encouraging user adoption of apps and agents inside ezCater?
Well, as I said, the number one thing was training users on skill building. The other is kind of dispelling myths, getting rid of the fears. We created an AI responsibility pledge that said that AI was going to be assistive. That it was not meant to replace our workforce. There's a natural resistance to a technology that you feel will unseat you. And so that is one of the things that we wanted to make sure that was not on the table. ezCater here has a culture that is about people. And so what we want to do is we want to say, how do we make that comfortable and use it? If we want them to use it, then they have to feel like they're not training their replacement. And it's those types of things and those habits that we're developing. I think some of the stuff that's happening in the personal space, people are starting to use it. and then they're starting to bring those in and trying to find ways for us to develop those skills. So many different AI things happening in so many different places. So creating avenues for people to say, I saw this, can we try this? Again, go back to that trial piece where we're open about don't work in the dark, we don't want to see the skunk work stuff. Come out, we're going to work with you. We're open about AI and saying, let's try it out. We'll do it responsibly and then figure out if there's something productive here, and then we can take it forward.
I love to hear that is your company philosophy. That's very on par with Glean as well. I am struggling, and maybe other folks in the audience are kind of struggling with the same thing. The technology is changing so fast. There is so many applications of it, and this is one I just wanted to ask you, Mark. So I'm improving here, but like how are you thinking about where to double down in what you're going to roll out or invest in for your company, and what technology, or like on the AI side, is there stuff that maybe you think is like fluff or not worth spending a bunch of time and investment in rolling out at you?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we're looking at it in multi-dimensions. So what's customer facing, what's employee facing, what's our restaurant partner facing. So we're looking at it and saying, where do those things apply? And in different places, it's assisting our engineers with coding. How do they move faster and do peer coding and Q&A and rapid prototyping is an excellent area where AI could be given an idea that just kind of came. Somebody said, wouldn't it be cool? Instead of taking 5 engineers offline for a week to go and flesh that out, could we give that to a number of coding agents and let them kind of come up with a skeletonized version of that? So those are the types of things we're looking at to say, how do we use it to get ahead? We want to grow as a company tenfold. Okay, great. Well, we can't make more time. We can't hire our way into that kind of growth. So we have to look at it and say, where do we put our time and how do we augment what we already have? Those are the ways that we're looking at these. How do we make better customer service? How do we service more customers with the same amount of people, or, not incrementally large, in all the different aspects of our business? And those are probably some of the biggest critical focuses for our strategy, is to say, where do we save time? Where do we make those elements? And it's a very difficult space right now because it is unknown. But I think the ones that are working alongside our most employees are probably some of the most compelling, because if you can help the employees kind of take some things off of their plate, you open up space for innovation. Planned innovation only happens if you have the time. It's the reason why you have ideas in the shower, because you relax, right? And that problem you were working on is difficult. So how do we create space for skill development, for training, for planned innovation, to think weird? That's where we're looking at it and saying those are where we're applying the things to save time. Get rid of the things that are mundane, the things we don't want to do, so that we can do more of the things we do.
Excellent. Douglas is asking if we have any thoughts around creating a central employee portal where AI helps the most important information resources available to employees based on their role or persona. So I guess, Glean kind of does that.
Yeah. And as I said, zero distance, Glean and these agents that are going to be in whatever collaborative system. I think that's the other importance, is look for solutions that are going to be close to where the users work. The old days of the intranet, I think that information is going to start to come to people instead of the other way around. We've seen that turn around. I think search engines and such are already, you're starting to see that change, right? You're asking a question, you're getting the AI at the top, and then you're getting the results to back it up. I think you're going to start to see that roll away, and it's going to be, I'm going to ask a question, it's going to cite the sources, but information is going to come to you. And so that means that you really have to try to find ways to get to the customer, the end user. And that's just the critical skill, is where do you start your day? Where do they live? And then try to put the AI right where they're at. So that's always it's next to them. I mean, you hired an intern. Think about it this way. You hired an intern for every employee. You can't hide the intern, put the intern at the desk next to you, and that way they can just ask.
Yeah. And as far as, that role-based, persona-based, that is what Glean, those are like the kind of key components when Glean runs our machine learning pipelines on your company data, is like who you are, where you sit, what you're working in. So when you do those searches, when you talk to the AI, it is taking those into account as well.
I teach all the time, don't ask for a summary. Ask for a summary and then say, based on my role, what should I look at first, or in what direction I should look? And Glean does a great job of like looking at it and saying, okay, based on my role and position in the company, a 22-page document suddenly tells me to jump to page 9, pulls out a certain thing. So if you want to look at economies of scale, it's looking at prompts that do those types of things. And again, it delights users when you give them that, add one line to this, and it changes the whole nature. Summary, key points, areas of where my focus should be, or giving it a role and saying, read this report I just wrote as the chief data officer, and any questions that are lingering, and recommend changes. Because if you could give a report that has all the questions are kind of answered in the report, even better, right? So those are the ways that you're looking at it and changing the way you think when you're doing these things.
Yeah. Sobin, sorry if I'm butchering your name, but they're asking, did you do a content audit of your existing data repositories before letting Glean loose on it? They're worried about outdated, no longer accurate documents and information floating around or populating inside of like Glean or as chat answers.
Search came out. So Glean, we went out with a search first. We didn't have a good enterprise search solution, so that was originally what brought us to Glean. Assistant came probably 3 months after the initial launch of search, and it kind of gave us an opportunity to use the search portion to kind of suss out where some of those problematic areas are. If you have a search engine, I would probably say you're going through and you have to be critical about like going and doing those searches and pull those out. And then just be honest with looking forward, and when you get those results, and encourage people to downvote things or to put those, we put a whole bunch of people in charge from various departments and said, go in and look critically at the results from your department, and then try to, pull those out, verify the good things, and pull out the bad.
Yeah, which are very lightweight features inside Glean that you can utilize to help with that garbage in, garbage out stuff as well. I love this question from Douglas. So asking another aspect he finds super interesting in the future of UX is, everything's kind of this chat box right now. Does everything needs to be a chat box, or what are your thoughts on the future of UX in this space? And I can share mine, but Mark wanted to hear yours first.
I'm super excited about the ability to do multimodal. I've been using ChatGPT with the voice function. I'm using Gemini. I dictate into Google Docs. So I talk too much. I mean, that's just one of my critical. It's either a superpower or a supervillain, whatever you want to call it. But I can articulate faster that way than I can type. And I can type pretty fast, but it's super nice to just be able to talk to those interfaces. I think as that improves, that's going to be just a great way to get us out of those chat boxes. Because I think some people will just kind of go and say, I don't type as well as I can think faster. And if you can just have that conversation, I think that's where things are going, is to say, hey, I'm going to have a conversation with this and put out the things. Some of the stuff that I'm seeing on ChatGPT, I'm begging the Glean team, like, good, get the support for these features that is going. And I know it's moving super fast. You can't go 30 days without seeing new features. Just watching OpenAI stuff earlier today. So with operators, so it's this landscape's changing quickly, and it's a great time to get in on the ground floor and get excited. If you get too many features, think about how much you have to teach the users. So get in now, teach them the base level skills, and then all you're doing is teaching them the little enhancement, the extra, the piece. That's so much easier than trying to say, hey, we're going to teach you all of these things, and here's 27 different ways to do it.
Yeah, I'm a podcast person, so I love kind of hearing a lot of data and absorbing it that way through a podcast. And I know Google has, I think anyone can sign in and convert presentations into a podcast. And I've heard that's super cool.
So that was awesome. We love that Notepad LM, the Notebook LM. What we did is I created essentially the same kind of prompt in Glean and put it on the prompt library and allowed people to use this, and said, don't summarize it, use the podcast feature, and it creates the personas and reads it to you. And interestingly enough, I kind of came up with a theory. When you read a document as a summary, you read it in your own voice, in your own head, right? Just like when you read. But if you read a book, you start to give voices to other things. And you've been through enough podcasts that you kind of do that. Well, if you take the same summary and you make it as a podcast where two fictional hosts are talking about that content, you're listening to it though as a listener, and you get that differently than if you were actually getting that and reading your own voice, because you typically, you're reading a summary. It may not be something you already know. So I think that it creates a better learning opportunity, relaxes the content, and gives you that. So we actually put that into the Glean library and focused on it.
I love it. Yeah. Yes. That more conversational tone is more like storytelling, which is where I think users do find more learning and delight in something. I do want to share one thing. This is a Glean thing, but Douglas, one thing we are also working on is something called prompts. So not only to help folks understand prompt engineering, but also to like create workflows. So this is a way to, actually, I'll show the kind of advanced feature, but this is not necessarily a chatbot. This is more utilizing AI in different ways to get outputs regularly, right? So you can have it first do a search. You can have it read the document. You can then have it think and use some reasoning after it reads these documents to reason out maybe something that doesn't make sense for the output you want. So this isn't just like a chatbot. This is more of a workflow type experience. So I know we're about at time, and Olivia is going to pop in here, but wanted to share that as well.
Like magic, I come back. Great job, guys. That was really insightful, and I know our audience was really engaged in that, so thanks to all of you. But I want to thank Mark and Kat for being here today, and for Glean for sponsoring today's webinar. And last but not least, I want to thank all of you in the audience for your time and attention today. Today's webinar has been recorded, and you will receive a link to that recording in a follow-up email. So keep an eye out in your inbox for that. And in the meantime, thank you all once more, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mark. Great pleasure always talking to you.